A lot can happen in 60 years, highs, lows, and everything in between. It's important for us to recognize our past and understand how we got here. In our 60th year as a school, let us celebrate our accomplishments. 60 years at West Leyden. The Potawatomi era. We can't talk about the 60 years of West Leyden without acknowledging how Leyden came to be. It's important to remember that we were not the first inhabitants of this land. For thousands of years, the land we know as Leyden Township today was inhabited by various indigenous tribes. The most recent were known as the Potawatomi. They lived in the lands surrounding Lake Michigan with an outpost where the Chicago River meets the lake. The Potawatomi were a powerful tribe and a part of the Council of Three Fires, a tribal confederacy made up of three Anishinaabe-speaking tribes, including the Ojibwe and the Ottawa. As European Americans began to move further west and encroach on native land, they began to push out the Potawatomi from their homes. The 1860 Treaty of St. Louis forced the tribe to give up land, spawning a 20-mile-wide section of the Chicagoland area. This created what is today known as the Indian Boundary Line, which cuts through the southern part of Leyden Township. This line separated the indigenous tribes from incoming white settlers. The treaty was signed by the following Illinois Potawatomi chiefs: Signatory 11, Shabone; Signatory 14, Wabansi; Signatory 1, his older brother, Black Partridge; and Signatory 2, Sonachewome. The Potawatomi tribe was moved to different reservations around the country, most notably in Oklahoma. These removals were often under poor conditions, such as the Potawatomi Trail of Death, when 42 people died as a result of a march on foot from Indiana to Kansas. Today, the tribe continues with a rich cultural heritage. It's important that we remember who the first inhabitants of this land were.
Mid-1850s. Leyden was mostly open prairie land with the grove of trees located near the Des Plaines River. Soon, an influx of German farmers began to buy large pieces of property in the Leyden area. Alongside them were the reservations of Alexander Robinson and Claude Laframboise. These two men were half Ottawa and Potawatomi and half European. They both served as translators between the tribe and the United States in the 1829 Treaty of Prairie du Chien. They were awarded land that would become Robinson Woods on Lawrence and River Road and Laframboise Reserve across the street from Jean and Jude's. More German settlers began settling farms in the area. The township had several names like Cazenovia and Monroe before the people settled on Leyden, named after a city in the Netherlands. In 1880, the Chicago and Western Railroad was built, and in 1890, Lesser Franklin began to create a town around the station that today is known as Franklin Park. East Leyden founded. Leyden students originally traveled to Chicago or other towns to go to school until 1913, when the first two-year high school in the area opened in the building that currently houses Hester Junior High. In 1924, Leyden Community High School District 212 was established, and East Leyden was built in 1927. Students from all over Leyden Township made their way to East Leyden, and the school continued to grow as the area moved from open farmland and prairie to the bustling streets we know today. Here is a diploma from the first graduating class of East Leyden from 1928.
Northlake Incorporated. Northlake was one of the last towns in Leyden Township to be established. Before 1949, the area that is today Northlake was occupied by farmland, Western Hole Golf Course, and an electric company, the latter of the two making up what is known as Grant Park today. The brand new city attracted many young families whose husbands had just returned from World War II and were looking to settle in the suburbs. A large part of the housing stock in Northlake comes from shell homes, which were unfinished, prefabricated homes that buyers would finish once they purchased. As the city of Northlake and the rest of Leyden Township began to grow at an exponential rate, East Leyden became too small for the amount of students living in the township. It was decided in 1956 from a vote among community members that District 212 would expand and build a second campus on the west side of the township on the intersection of Wolf and Diversey. The community approved the budget of about $6.7 million, and soon, construction of what would become our building was underway. West Leyden founded. Construction of West lasted about 2 years, with the first class of West actually finishing their first year at East Leyden. The building opened its doors to students in the fall of 1959. Students enjoyed state-of-the-art facilities and a beautiful new courtyard. From 1965 until 1969, West served as the campus of Triton Community College as well as the night school for adult classes. The building served as a place of learning for the entire community.
The thing that amazes me is when I started at West Leyden back in 1967, the school was only about 7 or 8 years old, so it was kind of like a brand new school. But now I come back here, the school's 60 years old, and I'm just amazed. It still looks new. I know they did a lot of remodeling, but it's like I never left. I mean, the school looks as good or better than it did when I was here, and that's almost 50 years since I graduated, but it's still like a new school to me when I come in here. So I'm just really amazed at how well it's been kept up, and the students, I hope, appreciate the fact that we've got such a great facility here.
The 70s and 80s saw many things for Leyden. Due to lower enrollment, in 1981, East and West Leyden merged their athletic programs. Originally, the East Leyden teams were known as the Eagles, and their colors were white and maroon. West Leyden was known as the Knights and were blue and gold. It was decided that the newly merged program would use East mascot and West colors. 90s. During the late 90s and early 90s, there was a major demographic shift in the student body of West Leyden. A look in the yearbook of this time shows the increasing number of Hispanic last names included. These names belong to many children of mostly Mexican families who were new to the area. Many of these families moved from the west side of Chicago, from places like Austin, Humboldt Park, Belmont, and Hermosa, among others. By the end of the decade, the demographic makeup of West Leyden looked much like it does today. The influx of Mexican and Hispanic culture at large has contributed to the lively and unique culture of West Leyden.
So West Leyden for me has shaped me in many ways. Leyden, Melrose Park, Franklin Park, Northlake, we're highly diverse. When I was younger, I didn't realize that going to school with Filipinos, Black students, Latinx, white students, I was going to school with a bevy of different individuals my age, and our teachers represented that too, and our staff more and more and more. And so for me, I think I just had great conversations with people with different backgrounds and ethnicities. And so for me, I think it made me more comfortable. I really do. I think it really changed the way that I work with people. And that's why I'm a better educator, a better artist, a better director. This area and this school really helped me in terms of that.
In 1992, a major renovation project replaced the existing windows at West with soundproof ones. Before this, planes from O'Hare passing by would disrupt class constantly. After this large renovation, the soundproof building we have today was established. The surrounding area is prone to flooding from nearby Addison Creek and the Des Plaines River. In 1994, massive flooding filled the reservoir in the back of the school. The water was so high that some even brought out their kayaks to sail the neighborhoods. In the new millennium, Leyden continues to strive to be at the forefront of educational innovation, going one-to-one with Chromebooks in 2012 and being one of the first school districts in Illinois to experiment with e-learning. In 2019, construction at West was completed with a beautiful brand new area of the school, housing the library and cafeteria. In 2020, the coronavirus pandemic hit Leyden, and much like the rest of the state of Illinois, the building closed its physical doors on March 13th. Remote virtual learning was conducted from that point on and until the first semester of the new 2020 to 2021 school year, with students learning remotely with the use of Google Meets and online applications. And here we are today, at an important juncture in the history of our school. A lot has happened in 60 years, and a lot more will happen in another 60 years. Remember where we came from and look to where we are headed. This is 60 years of West Leyden High School.